Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a preview. This one is for a brand new game called Two Robots. It is a 2 to 4 player game in which each of us is representing a different salvager going out to the landscape and then hunting these robot parts, trying to build them in our factory.
Yeah, and we're going to be building a certain number of robots, and you can probably guess it's 2. That's one of the ways you can win the game, in fact. You build 2 robots in front of you. Now, that's not as simple as just putting down one card. You actually have to build these robots in parts and complete them. Or the game's going to end if you get knocked out. And everyone's going to have some event cards in front of them that are also their health cards. But those are the 2 ways you're going to play this game.
All right, so the idea behind the game is it is far in the future, and mankind has wiped themselves out completely. And what we've done is we've built these salvagers who are trying to go out there and build robots to either be peaceful or to kind of maintain control of the area. Each of us is going to come to the table with one of these different salvagers. Each of them is going to have a deck of 3 cards, or they're all face up in front of you. These cards are called event cards, and they're actually going to represent your life and give you some kind of special ability through the course of the game. Your salvager is also going to give you some kind of special ability that can be used once per turn if you're able to key it at any given time.
Yeah, these abilities definitely give each salvager some flavor. Some of them are going to use one of your actions, and you're going to get 3 of those per turn. And some salvagers don't require an action, like Jeremy just said. Some of them just have a once per turn thing that they can do.
Also, you're going to have 2 stacks of cards. You have the action deck, and then you have the built robot deck. The action deck has a combination of 3 different types of cards. You have robot cards, which either can be one type of robot or a hybrid. You have attack cards, and then you also have defense cards, and these are all randomly mixed into that deck. The built robot deck is another type of event, not out in front of you, but it's one that you can use instead of one of your personal events if you have a fully built robot.
Yeah, so we already touched on this a little bit, but the game is going to end when you've either built 2 robots or you've been knocked out of the game. If you go that route, you have to be the last salvager standing. But the game itself is going to play in a very systematic fashion.
Right, so each player is going to start with one of the salvagers in front of them. All 3 of their event cards face up, and then you're going to go through the 4 different rounds in the game. We'll explain each of them in turn. Starting with the first player, they're going to draw 3 of these cards from the action deck. And as we already alluded to, they can be robots, they can be attack cards, they can be defense cards. Then you get to take 3 actions with these cards. Typically, what you want to do is start building up your robots. And as we already alluded to, you're going to be building these in stacks across or in front of you. This is kind of your tableau. Each one of these stacks has to be one of the 5 different types of elemental types of those robots.
Yeah, there's 5 different energy types to the robots. For instance, here I have chemical, and then I have this one, which can either be chemical or solar. When you play or start a stack, you can start it with any part of any type. But from that point forward, you have to sort of match the type. So if I played this is going to be a chemical robot. Every card I play on after this has to have at least some portion of the card as green. And like we said earlier, there's going to be heads, legs, arms, and torsos to these things. A robot is not complete until it has one of each of those parts. However, each robot can have more than one of those types of parts. When you build them that way, you're just going to put those extra parts on sideways and build that robot because you're going to be using these parts quite a bit throughout the game.
So as you can see in front of this player, they have 3 stacks of robots. One of them is chemical, one of them is solar, and then they have a fully built robot that is mechanical because they have one of each of the individual body parts in there. That stack number is extremely important. That's because each of the other cards in your hand that aren't robots are attack or defense cards. You're going to see a number in the upper left-hand corner of each of these cards. This isn't a cost or anything. It's actually a value that you have to meet of stacks in front of you in order to use that card. Defense cards basically are going to prevent attacks from coming in, but they also have the ability to draw cards. In this case, I have Power Gloves. It doesn't require any stacks in front of me. It just allows me to draw 2 cards from that stack. However, Power Surge here, which is an attack card, requires that I have 3 stacks in front of me. And I know you can't see this on camera, but I only have 2 stacks in front of my salvager, meaning that I can't play this card on my turn.
Yeah, this whole game is about managing your stacks of robots in front of you because like Jeremy just said, all the cards depend on the number of stacks you have. And as you play cards, and more importantly, as you trigger events, be it your personal events or the built robot events, you're going to be sacrificing a lot of robot parts. So you'll find yourself building robots to use at times just as a sacrificial lamb to use spare parts to power some of those events.
Once you're done with your 3 actions, then you actually go into an event phase. And this is where the strategy of how you build your robot is extremely important. On your turn, you're allowed to do one of 2 events. The first possible event is actually using one of the event cards that is out in front of you. You have 3 of these face up at the start of the game. Each one of them is only allowed to be used once, and once it's used, it's going to be turned face down. But in order to use any of these events, you actually have to discard 2 parts from any of your robots, and those go to the discard pile. So you're actually deconstructing your robots in order to use these really powerful events. The other possible thing that you can do is if you have a fully built robot, meaning you have one of each of the different parts, you can sacrifice 1 part, not only from him, but from any of your other robots, to take one of these cards randomly out of the deck and then try to fire it off. That deck is going to consist of a mix of shots and blanks, and that's going to depend upon the number of players, but typically these will allow you to ping one of the event cards away from 1 player, multiple players, or so forth. So it's really powerful to build those massive robots and have all the different parts in order to damage the other players.
Yeah, not only are you damaging them, but you're potentially taking event cards away from them. If I haven't used any of my 3 event cards, my personal event cards, and someone does some attack towards me that I can't defend, I'm going to have to choose one of these to lose. And like we said at the beginning of the game, each salvager has an interesting variable power, but that extends to all of their event cards as well. Those event cards are unique and very special you want to use throughout the game. So you're going to want to use them while you have them.
Most of these shots are going to be just 1 damage to one of their event cards, so the player that takes the damage can choose. However, there is a precision shot in that deck too, that if you happen to pull it, you actually get to choose which event. So again, it's very important in order to build your robots to be able to use those to start using that built robot deck. Once you're done taking your event, then you go to the cleanup phase. If you have more than 7 cards in your hand, you're going to discard back down to 7, and the turn's going to pass to the player on your right, so it goes counterclockwise around the table.
And like we said, you're going to continue doing this until one of 2 things happens. The first thing is if someone has built 2 robots, it is a hard stop and that person wins. And remember, building 2 robots means you've built 2 different robots of 2 different types with all 4 of their respective parts. The other thing that can happen is the game goes on and on for a while and people are eliminated by being taken out, and that's when they lose all 3 of their event cards. If I lose all 3 of my event cards, I'm out. That means in this case, Jeremy might win as long as he's taken this person out as well.
Yeah, so I want to make it very clear that it may seem very simple when you first listen to the rules that we just told you, but there is a back and forth tug of war that you have eternally about what you want to use your robots for. Obviously, you want to build them up as much as possible, but in order to use both of these stacks of event cards, you have to start to deconstruct them. So there's some strategy on how you build them out, where to put duplicate parts out, and how to use those 3 actions every single turn that you have.
Yeah, you simply can't go heavy in 2 different types of robots and collect those cards and play them and get rid of other cards. You're going to want to build out, like we said earlier, some robots that you have no intention of finishing and just using for parts. Now, the interesting thing that might happen is you might draw some cards one round that lets you finish one of those robots. So then you have to shift a little bit and maybe build that robot and let some of the parts go from the one that you were trying to build.
And don't forget, you have to have several different stacks in order to fire off a lot of these different action cards. If you're only concentrating on 2 stacks, you're going to miss all the 3, 4, and 5 cards that require you to have multiple different stacks in order to use them.
Yeah, and obviously those are the most powerful cards. I have the Sentry Gunship right here. This lets me cancel an event card. Those event cards are very powerful. If someone plays this and able to cancel it, it's a significant shift in the game.
So that is 2 robots. If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, check out their Kickstarter page, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.